Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today sitting down for a Starfield news blowout. From Phil Spencer to Todd Howard to Matt Booty, we got a ton of quotes, a ton of information on Starfield, from frame rate to graphics to the size of the game. There's so much to get into in today's video, and certainly we'll have much more Starfield to discuss in the coming days. I'm still working on my in-depth analysis. I'm doing it a bit different this time because what Bethesda did with their 45-minute direct was effectively an in-depth analysis of its own. So I'm taking a different approach to it. It's going to take a couple more days, but I think y'all like what I've put together. So just stay patient. In the meantime, we got a lot of news to get into, and I've been pouring videos out like it's nobody's business. Thank you so much for supporting them. Our video on the showcase reactions has officially plummeted in performance because my man Ichiban Kasuga, I already had a vendetta against Like a Dragon, but now the man's costing me a bag because the video got age limited. When that happens, videos don't get put out into sub boxes and unfortunately hurts the channel. So thank you to those of you showing up. I appreciate it. If you're new here, you're into Starfield news, information, you're in the right place. We're covering everything that's going on with this game before, into, and after the launch of it. But before we go any further, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by Factor. Before I get into anything about Factor, let's hear from my dog, Revan. He loves Factor, and guess what? So will you, and so do I. Why is that? Because whether you're trying to achieve some summer goals, elevate eating at home, Factor has delicious, nutrition-packed meals made just for you, no matter your lifestyle. Whether it's keto, vegan and veggie, calorie smarts, protein plus, they've got you covered. Some of you may remember I was vegan for a long while, and guess what? Off the vegan diet now. But one thing that's been consistent with Factor across all these diets, the meals are incredibly good and easy to warm up. See, if you're trying to take takeout, say, one of my guilty pleasures, out of your diet, save some money, I'm moving into a house soon, guess what? Factor's got your back because it's not only cheaper, but it's also quicker than restaurant delivery, with your meals being ready in just 2 minutes. And you know, with that extra time saved, you get to, do more important, interesting things. So if this sounds great to you, and I know it does, then head over to factor75.com and use the code MattyPlays50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Again, head to factor75.com and use code MattyPlays50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Okay, let's start off with frame rate. This was something Phil Spencer promised we would know day of the showcase. We all thought it would happen during the showcase itself. Turns out it would be in an interview afterwards with IGN, where, yes, for some of you, your worst fears have been confirmed if you're on consoles. Starfield runs at 30 frames per second on both Xbox Series X and S, Bethesda's Todd Howard has confirmed. Speaking to IGN in an interview ahead of Xbox and Starfield's showcase, Howard said Starfield runs in 4K resolution on the Xbox Series X and 1440p on Series S, but has locked Starfield at 30 FPS on console to ensure consistency of performance. Todd says, I think it'll come as no surprise given our previous games what we go for. All of these huge open worlds, fully dynamic, hyper detail where anything can happen, and we want to do that. It's 4K on the X and it's 1440p on the S. We do lock it at 30 because we want that fidelity. We want all of that stuff. We don't want to sacrifice any of it. Fortunately, in this one, we've got it running great. It's often running above that, sometimes in 60. But on the consoles, we do lock it because we prefer the consistency where you're not even thinking about it. And we don't ever want to sacrifice that experience to make our games feel really, really special. So it feels great. We're really happy with how it feels, even in the heat of battle, and we need that headroom because in our games, really anything can happen. So if you pay attention to a lot of this channel and the Starfield coverage we do, this shouldn't come as a major surprise. Todd practically confirmed it without really saying it on the Lex Friedman podcast. It was just a matter of him saying officially, yeah, it's 30 frames. Now, as I had predicted, not to toot my own horn too much, you noticed that the internet's not really set ablaze about frame rate. Why is that? Starfield looks particularly ambitious, where I think people can understand why the sacrifice is being made. Now, does it help that Phil Spencer has said that Xbox Series X is the world's most powerful console, yet it continues to underdeliver with 30 FPS games or third-party games that are performing worse on Series X? Absolutely, that is problematic, but I don't think that's a Starfield problem. I think that's a Series X issue potentially, and that a lot of developers are having problems with it. But let me explain why I don't think it's a Starfield issue. Now, is it encouraging to see Todd say that, hey, we could hit 60 in some areas, but for consistency, we've made a creative choice to lock it at 30? Yes. What I saw in the actual gameplay during the direct seemed to be a firm 30. However, there were times it dipped. I think that's going to make or break a lot of the conversation for Starfield. Bugs and performance, especially after Redfall. A lot more pressure is on Starfield on a technical level than previously what it already was. With all that said, do I care about it being 30 frames? No, because I want Bethesda Game Studios to make the game they want to make. Because when they do that, I get some of my favorite games of all time. They've done that for pretty much every single game. And Starfield, as someone like many of you out there who has followed them throughout their whole entire journey, looks like the most ambitious thing they've put together. That's gonna come with some type of cost. Granted, I come from a little bit more retro gaming background. I still play a ton of games at 30 frames for retro rebound, so I do have a more skewed view of it where I can live with it. Personally, once I adjust, that's fine with me. Still, there's the part of me that looks at this game, all of the systems, the physics even, everything that's just happening in this game, and I think we're lucky it's running at all, quite frankly. And I know that's not something anybody wants to hear, but that's how I'm personally feeling taking a look at it just on consoles. But the PC elitist in me also says when it comes to time to mod Starfield and adding in all that community content over on PC, it's going to be 60. It's going to be mad nice over there too. But I think for consoles, I'm okay with this concession because I don't need to run through everything we saw in the 45-minute direct. And I don't say it to make excuses. I understand if some people are disappointed, but when you look at the kind of do everything experience they're creating where you have multiple approaches to missions, your backgrounds matter, your traits matter, the skill system, the movement in combat where you have like a boost pack, the amount of planets, the crafting of your spaceship, the crafting of your items, the crafting of your outposts, and the list goes on. That doesn't just all happen and then run super slick on a console. There's going to be some type of consolation there, and I'm okay with this one. It's different where it's something like Redfall with, after playing it, of course it's a little easier to say, but even beforehand, when we saw it was going to be 30 frames on console, it was a moment where we went, what? Why? This game doesn't look particularly big or like it's doing anything we haven't seen before. The difference is for Starfield, in my humble opinion, it's doing things we haven't seen before, and it's putting them all together in one absolutely massive game. So I'm not too bothered by 30 frames, although I understand if some are, but to me, the writing's been on the wall long enough where I've also prepared myself for it, so there's less of a reaction here, and I think that's why you're seeing less of a reaction online, because people are authentically excited about the game itself and not frames. Do frames matter? Absolutely. In this case, I think it just matters if it's consistent, because that's the least we can ask for. Continuing on with performance, speaking at the What Next for Gaming event, Howard had revealed that Series S has become his most used Xbox console, although not entirely out of choice. He said, I got an X and S when they came out. Howard revealed to the assembled media, I put the X in the basement with the big 4K TV. My kids don't let me play it, they're always on it, so the S is upstairs, and the game looks great. Then Xbox chief Phil Spencer said, we can see where Todd is in the pecking order, and Todd responded saying, it looks great, but technically most of my Starfield play has been on Series S within my family. So just something to throw out there, you know, with what's going on with the Series S and oftentimes it being blamed for Xbox's underperformance in third party, hearing that Todd's been playing a lot of the game in 1440, 30 FPS and having a good time with it at home on his Series S is a great sign. Now, Todd wants this game to sell. Xbox wants this game to sell. He's not going to sit there and go, man, yeah, I was dropping a lot of frames last night when I went to this play. We all know he's not going to do that. So I wouldn't say take this quote and run away with it, but it's good context with everything else going on because it was in a completely separate event. Let's talk graphics in Starfield. As I'll show in a little bit, it got a major visual update. How'd that come to be? Let's talk to Todd once more. Bethesda has clarified Doom developer id Software's involvement in Starfield's development in wake of a May rumor claiming the fellow ZeniMax-owned studio had stepped in to overhaul Starfield's combat. In an interview with IGN ahead of the Xbox Showcase and Starfield Direct, Bethesda boss Todd Howard confirmed id Software had helped out with Starfield's graphics, but they, quote, did not help us with the combat, end quote. So with Fallout 4, they did give us a few tips on how to handle combat, and Starfield, we redid the combat ourselves, and it's feeling really great. But id has helped us really more on the graphics side. Howard said Bethesda wanted to bring over some aspects of the id Tech engine into the creation engine in a bid to improve Starfield's look and feel. So we get into motion blur, Howard explained. It's just how the game feels smooth. Some other things that they do in id Tech that we wanted to bring over into creation engine 2, and they helped us do that, and it's great. Now, seeing is believing. Here is Starfield last year when we all saw it and thought, hey, this actually looks extremely good for a Bethesda Game Studios game. And here is the same exact place this year with much better color grading. Obviously, the ground looks far better. The entire environment looks better. It's far more populated. I mean, color me impressed, and I believe that. Id is incredible. We've seen Doom with its level of detail and speed at which it's all going down. You think, oh, there's got to be a hiccup somewhere here, but they are technical masters of the craft. So for Bethesda Game Studios to tap them on the shoulder makes a lot of sense to me. I don't remember this rumor in particular about the game's combat, but still, it's good to know Bethesda has squashed it, because one thing that did impress me with Starfield showing, and we can't say for sure until we feel it with our own hands, is the combat did look sharper, like the recoil for certain guns and how they behaved. Fallout 4's I defined as a little bit more clunky, and that would make sense given it's a world where all these weapons are stitched together with duct tape pretty much, and very few are futuristic. However, with Starfield, I was thinking, all right, these probably should be sharper, cleaner weapons and feel that way too, and it certainly looks that. So for Bethesda Game Studios to go off and do it on their own, I like how they absorb the knowledge of everyone around them, and kind of, again, leads to everyone across the company pouring a little bit into the BGS sauce, we'll say. So you can see it with your own eyes. The graphics have massively improved. I didn't even notice this during the showcase because I was happy with how it looked last year. I guess I say shamefully, because then you see how much better it can actually look. But yes, it did help make this game look better. And you got to pay a price when your game looks this good, right? 125 gigabytes according to the store page for Starfield. It's available now, and you can preload it. Now, what I mentioned earlier was that Starfield would be defined by its frame rate. And what else did I say? Bugs. Now, Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, has made quite the claim. So let's read. Starfield has the fewest bugs of any Bethesda game, Xbox has claimed. We have an awful lot of people playing Starfield internally, working with Todd and the team, he told Giant Bomb. I see bug counts, and just by the numbers of it shipped today, Starfield would already have the fewest bugs of any Bethesda game ever shipped. Xbox boss Phil Spencer also told Giant Bomb that Starfield had a much earlier release date before Microsoft acquired the company for $7.5 billion and delayed the game twice. He said of Bethesda, the team has definitely matured. They've got Fallouts and Skyrims and Elder Scrolls under their belt. When the acquisition closed, the first game had a significantly earlier ship date, earlier than the date we had first set for Starfield. We sat down with Todd and the team and explained we wanted to give them the time. I think Matt said we have every QA person in our entire company playing Starfield right now, looking at bug counts, looking at the quality of where we're at. The nice thing about what we showed today, from my perspective, is that was the game. We've been playing the game for quite a while, and that's the game. All right, two things here. One, a small victory lap here for Matty, and I'll get into that in a moment, but I want to focus on the information here. So, Starfield and bugs. This game is super ambitious, super impressive in scale, and as you increase that scale, you exponentially increase your bug count. And polish is the most under-discussed part of video game development. I think of something like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The game was done last year. They took a full year and change just to polish the experience. You'd be surprised how quickly you can stitch together an experience, but getting it ready for consumption is a whole different ballgame. So again, when you see something like Starfield, the reason everyone's freaking out is it's so big that it's almost terrifying. And then you got to think about the polish side of it. So it wouldn't surprise me if this game, as Todd said back in 2018, you could play it from start to finish. That's an alpha state that they've just been polishing and polishing and polishing for multiple years, because it's such a gigantic video game. I say all of that because for Xbox to come on out and say, yes, hey, Bethesda Game Studios, the team that is widely maligned for all of their bugs and glitches to the point that they have earned the nickname Bethesda, this game has the least bugs of them all. Really dangerous claim to make. And they got to feel confident to say something like that, because I know they think highly of the team. They're my favorite game dev studio. Of course, I think highly of them. But even something like Fallout 4 had tons of bugs and glitches. Fallout 76 speaks for itself, but the point being is it carried in a ton of bugs and glitches from Fallout 4. So some of these bugs are legacy bugs. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if the list is shorter than something like Fallout 4, that it's not necessarily going to be completely bug-free. Now, I will say this in their defense, and it's purely anecdotal. From the thousands of hours I put into Fallout 4, okay, I don't get many problems with the game. But I distinctly remember when the game had come out that there were a lot of people showing bug reels, bug montages that just were highlighting how awful the game was to them. And that's where things get strange, because it was one of those situations similar to the Cyberpunk where I'm like, well, I'm not having anywhere close to that bad of a problem with this game. And the most I'll see is a texture loading in, which I don't lose my mind over too much. So we'll see. I know a lot of people are going to take that statement and hold them accountable for it. So Xbox, if you're watching this, and I know sometimes you do watch it, I'm just going to say be ready for that smoke and make sure that it truly is less than any other Bethesda game. And if you're confident in that, then hopefully we see it, because maybe they could have a moment similar to Obsidian with the Outer Worlds, where they always made amazing games, but then they had this shocking level of polish to a lot of people in the Outer Worlds, and that was one of the major talking points with it. Now, I did mention a little Matty victory lap. I did want to talk about it a bit here, but I stuffed it in the end because it's about me just kind of having my moment here, so I know it's not the most important thing in the world. Starfield having a significantly earlier release date. Yeah, so remember when I reported this? Remember when I said that it was coming out towards the end of 2021? And when it was confirmed, no, that was never happening to certain reporters. Now I see information like this when the only known date we had beforehand was November of 2022. Phil saying significantly earlier. And I say this not to stroke my ego, but more so to defend myself. A lot of people dragged my name through the mud after that whole debacle, and I bent the knee and I said, you know what? I guess I got it wrong. My bad. I'll do better. And I kind of pulled out of the leaks game. And whenever I knew something for sure, which is typically what I did, even with Starfield back then I'd let loose, because I felt like information is power. I'm not going to hold something from you if I know it, but I'm not going to be your #1 insider. Just like I got Forza right? I told everyone it was coming in October. So it's not like I'm shooting from the hip here, but this is kind of a redemption for me, because I saw this and went, oh, so it might have actually been that original release window that many of us were reporting. And then all of a sudden the press team was like, no, that never happened. Now Phil is saying the exact opposite. And I'm sorry, I'm more likely to believe Phil. I imagine the projected, likely, realistic release date was much deeper, but they were shooting for earlier. And this was during the time where ZeniMax was overruling. And then it seems like Xbox stepped in and said, let's give you the time to nail this, because they couldn't afford another dud. So I just wanted to highlight that and, polish up the Mr. Matty name a little bit. Get it all nice and shiny now. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's everything when it comes to Starfield's news and information today in our second video of the day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you greatly, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. So do fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.